Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
That one for next podcast. Yeah. um, the thing at USD, so this very beautiful private college down here, I as good as my last 2 years of my grades were, etc., I was not caliber to get accepted in that school. However, the year that I got accepted was the first year they opened this $60 million, which then sounded like a lot of money, but this was back in 2002 or something. Right. Anyways, they just opened this $60 million science and technology building. And so they were trying to fill
it, yeah,
with science majors. And here is this guy coming in as a chemistry major thinking I'm going to be a chemist for the rest of my life. By the way, no, thank you. No way. And that's how I got accepted, or else I don't think that would have ever. And that brought me to San Diego, where, you know, I've been able to build this beautiful life and make commerce. And even though it's now officially the most expensive county in the country, it's my heart. I mean, this is my home. I've been here now longer, I'm almost 41, than I was in LA. So San Diego is my home, and I love it dearly. It's meant a lot to me, and I will stay here until they kick me out or I die.
There you go. That's awesome, buddy.
Yeah.
So you go to school at USD. What do you study?
I studied chemistry for like the first 2 years.
Okay.
Chemistry, man, here's the thing about chemistry. I was not smart enough to be a chemist. So, I mean, I was on that campus like 16 hours a day. I could barely hold a job down here, and I was failing for the first time in my life. I was getting tutored in calculus and failing. I needed to get to 3 calculuses. I mean, it was usually, if I busted my ass at something, I would do okay, and especially with school. If I had to study a little extra, fine, but I could usually get any material, get passing grades. When I got in those higher up chemistry classes, I was getting smoked. I mean, they would give me, I would study too. It's not like I didn't put I would sit there, they would give me this test, and I would just look at everyone else. Everyone else is writing those, and I would turn in like a blank test. I mean, that has never happened to me. That's fine. That's the universe saying this isn't right for you.
Right.
So actually, I went to the head of the chemistry department, and I said, look, I am miserable. I can barely work. I can't pass calculus 1. I need calculus 3. What do I do? And she said, well, what do you want to be? And at the time I said, well, I think I want to be a forensic scientist. Work for the FBI, something like that. She was like, oh, you actually don't need a physical science major for that. We just had a girl last year, same situation, same shoes, and she switched to psychology. And I thought, well, dang, I know there's cute girls in psychology classes. You know, there's not a ton in my chemistry classes, and I do love people, and I love emotions and behaviors. Okay, let me try that. So I switched to psychology. And in my upper division classes for psychology, I took some biopsychology classes, and I fell in love with the chemistry of the brain and neurobiology. There was a professor there, Veronica Galvan, that I became very close with, and I did a lot of side research with. And her husband, Pete Vanderklish, bless his heart, he was the man, he still is, worked in the neurobiology department at Scripps Research. So the largest, you know, academia research facility in the country here, right up the street in San Diego. As part of one of our side research projects, I met him one day. So Veronica took us to Pete's lab. And I don't know, he saw something in me and mentioned it to her. And so after I graduated from USD, I went and worked in the neurobiology department under Pete. And that started over a decade-long stint in the research world here in San Diego.
Yeah.
However, about 2 years into doing the research, I realized this is probably, I really like it. It's interesting work. Talk about getting to see the power of the universe or God or life, whatever you want to call it. But man, you start growing neurons in a petri dish and looking at them under a beautiful microscope. Use that. I mean, that is the wonder of the world, right?
Yeah.
That driving force of life. But I knew I didn't want to do it forever. It just wasn't my passion. So at the point in time, I'll tell this story because it's kind of funny because it's how it ended up getting me to where I do now as a financial advisor, which might sound nerdy, but I will do for the rest of my life. It's such a calling. So I had a lot of nurses in my life at that time. And they said, you know what? You're a nurturer, you care for people, you've got the analytical scientific side, like have you thought about being a nurse? And so I started looking into it and decided I wanted to be a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
So I went back to school, paid more student loans, got prerequisites done, started doing volunteer. I wanted to, at this point in time, I was with my partner, Emily. She had her business here in San Diego. So I wanted to go to USD's Accelerated Masters in Nursing program. I'm an alumni. I'm working with USD faculty members, volunteering in their urgent care center. One of the things that I did for my resume was I started volunteering Friday night, 8 to midnight, up at Scripps Memorial. So right up the street here in San Diego.
Yeah.
There was 2 volunteers per shift. The other volunteer was a really sweet guy, kind of shy, kind of nerdy, a little bit older than me. And he said, man, I really recently have gotten into the stock market and this philosophy. And I read this book written by a guy named William O'Neill. So William O'Neill was one of our generation's best growth traders. And in the 60s, he developed a philosophy called CAN SLIM. It's an acronym. CAN SLIM stands for different things. Call me on the side if you want to know. And he started Investors Business Daily, which was a daily periodical, just like the Wall Street Journal. So I got that book. I tell you what, I got that book. I read it. I studied it. I memorized it. I still follow that philosophy to this day. But whatever it was, 17 years ago, that got me into the stock market. In the meantime, I started teaching my very, very good buddies, my brothers, the philosophy about the stock market. Got them into trading. I mean, one of them, 4 years ago, used his trading account to buy his first house, which he since sold and bought another one. Okay. So let me go back. Okay. So I applied to USD to their Accelerated Masters program. I think I put my Cal Poly GPS as like a 3.8 and it was actually a 3.7. I don't know. They kicked me out. They didn't consider my application. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm like an honest, trustful person almost to a T. I tell a lie, I turn bright red. I mean, I'm bright red. Yeah, I can't keep track of lies.
Right.
I was so heartbroken. The faculty members I was working with cried. Not an exaggeration. Literally cried when I told them because they knew what it meant to me. They knew Pete, who wasn't even involved in this world. I was going to leave Pete to become a nurse. Pete was who I was working for. And he called the lady and said, you've got this guy so confused. I think, and again, the universe, thank you for doing that. That wouldn't have been a calling for me. I think the way insurances work and nurses are all about patient care, and now you just the churn and burn. It's turn over the beds, pill seekers treating you like a waiter. I mean, it would have been bad.
Yeah.
Would
have been a real clash with your values.
Yeah, it was very devastating. I think that at that point in time, now we have a huge shortage of nurses. If there's any people listening right now, that please go be a nurse, come into this world. We need more. We've got a huge shortage. Back then it wasn't the case.
Right.
And so I think they were so saturated. This is what a faculty member told me, that anything they could use, whether you're alumni, who didn't matter, to get you crossed off the application list, they used that. At least that's what I'm assuming, and that's kind of what I was told. But the beautiful thing is, so fast forward a little bit, I'm pretty devastated. I stick in research because it's what I know. I don't know what else I want to do. I'm now working at a biotech company that was born out of the neurobiology department at Scripps.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these people that I've become very close with had started a biotech company with a big GE grant. And actually, these guys are the first people that pioneered mRNA,
Okay.
the therapies that just made the COVID vaccine.
Exactly.
They were basically Vince Morrow, look him up, one of the pioneers. That all came from a guy named Gerald Edelman, who ran our lab before he passed away, won the Nobel Peace Prize for chemistry back in the 70s, antibody work, all that. Anyway. So I'm working for this biotech company and it goes under. A slow death. I mean, it took months for this thing to die. And I saw people and a lot of their livelihoods attached to this get crushed.
Oh.
That was it. I was done with scientific research. It already wasn't a passion. This was an awful experience. So here I am now trying to figure out, what the hell do I do? I'm thinking about medical device sales and pharmaceutical sales. None of that appealed to me. And bless their hearts, but doctors and scientists, a lot of ego there. A lot of great ones too, but there's a lot of ego. It's a lot of, an intellectual peeing contest between everyone's got to be the smart. That's not for me. I can be humble and tell you I'm not the smartest at a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I'm now working for one of my best buddies, construction companies up in LA, under the table.
Wow.
I've got all this college education, all this, and actually it was fun. I learned a lot. It was great. Don't get me wrong. But come on. I mean, I'm 34, 5 years old at that time. I'm working construction on the table, still lost, still not knowing what I wanted to do. Cooper was his name, Brian Cooper. We're on the job site one day and he gets a call from his then financial advisor. He hangs up and he looks at me. He's like, you ever thought about doing financial advising? You're always, and for years now, been talking to us about the stock market. Seems like you like. The next day, Mike, I started the path to this career, which I will do until they tell me I can't anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about finding your calling after 10 years of being very, very lost. More than 10 years. I mean, you think you want to be a chemistry major, and then you go to psychology to do forensics. Then you end up going to a neurobiology department. I mean, there was a lot of zigging and zagging, but isn't the universe beautiful? Without switching to psychology, wouldn't have met Veronica. Without Veronica, wouldn't have met Pete. Without research, wouldn't have even thought about going into nursing. Without that, I wouldn't have met Andrew, the other volunteer at the freaking emergency room up at Scripps Memorial. Would never have gotten this book, this philosophy about the stock market. I mean, holy moly.
Pretty crazy, huh?
It's hard to see the forest through the trees, but geez, in hindsight, it's a beautiful, crazy thing in the universe. Be kind, be a good person, do right, and hopefully the universe takes care of you.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens.
That's my long-winded story.
That's what happens.
Are we out of time?
This came from what I can tell. This came from you adding value and coming from a place of contribution with your friends. Right? And that's when Cooper turns to you and goes, hey, you're always talking about the stock market. You're always talking about, why don't you go into financial advising? And all of a sudden it's like, now the light goes on, right?
Right.
And here you are working. I mean, you have a degree from USD. You have all this background in research, all this background in biotech, all this stuff. And you're working for a buddy's construction company under the table.
Away from Emily, which maybe we'll talk.
And you're like 35 years old going, what?
What
right?
The hell am
and then
I
Cooper
doing?
turns to you and bam, lightning, right? Lightning strikes. So where did you go to work?
New York Life.
Okay. Why New York Life?
For a lot of reasons. God, I should back up and tell the other story, but I don't want to talk about it. I actually got lined up with Cooper's financial advisor to go work for the company that I will not name.
Okay.
And I started down that path. So it's like he got me licensed in life, health, and different insurances. Did that. That was step one. Then you move on to get your 6 and 63. Then you move on, get your 65 and 7. Very excited. I'm doing this. This is a new path for me. I go to an orientation at this company's office in Los Angeles. It was the most disheartening thing ever. I mean, I don't want to get into details and talk bad, but I'll just say I got back to Cooper's house. I called Emily. So Emily was my partner. She's since passed away, but I was with her for 12 years. She was still is my other half of my light and soul. I called Emily and I said, I think I've made a terrible, terrible mistake about this industry. In the meantime, Emily, who was self-employed down here in San Diego, worked with a girl named Kimmy. Kimmy's brother worked for New York Life. I'd never even heard of New York Life. He comes over to our house to help Emily with her health insurance. And we start talking.
That's cool.
And he says, would you like me to set up a meeting with the managing partner of the San Diego office? And I was smart enough to be dumb enough to just know I'm not going to say no to anything.
Right.
I don't think I'm going to stay in this industry. But I came up and in 1 week I had 3 meetings with our managing partner, Tony Montalvo, and said yes. And it was the best decision I've ever made.
That's cool. Are you with them still today?
I am. So I have a lot of different licenses. What's up?
Has it been 6 years?
It's a little over 6 years now.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of different licenses, and this is why I chose this firm and this institution. So I have licenses for life, health, disability insurance, annuities. I hang with New York Life. I have my series 63, 6, 65, and 7 that I hang with NyLife Securities and then our advisory firm, Eagle Strategies.
Okay.
This company is one of the largest financial institutions in the world. We're just privately owned. We are not publicly traded, which I love. So we are owned by our clients for a lot of different products. They have been around for 180 something years. They've got more money in their surplus than the FDIC has backing up our public bank money. You don't usually see institutions this large and this rich be this kind and this decent. And trust me, I've delivered my first death benefit was to myself when I lost Emily. You don't want a company. Anyways, the point of going to this company was that I could do everything for a household.
Gotcha.
And I don't think anyone's going to treat a household better than this company or myself.
Gotcha.
Probably because of my background and where I came from. I'm not a salesman. I've never sold anything in my life. I love this industry because of 2 things. The client family that I've built, which saved my life. When I lost Emily and then my mom 2 months later, I went through some these people saved the people and the family that I built through this industry and this firm have saved my life. And I can't remember what else I was going to say, but that's right. I like the client family, but then I like to educate people. And you and I talked about this prior to the podcast starting. The extreme lack of education when it comes to financial wealth in this country by design. The debt matrix, it's built-in slavery for the masses, the way credit cards work, the way banking works, the way the feds borrow from the feds to lend to the bank. There's such a lack of education, it makes me upset. So I'm very, very education forward with my clients. They see that, they know they can trust me, and I'm very proud to say that I'm only referral based. My client family only grows from my client family. And I have like the most amazing people inside of that client family. So
and you've earned it, dude. I mean, I know from our conversation before the podcast started how passionate you are. And just for the record, we're writing a book starting January of 2024 on homeownership, and you've graciously agreed to be interviewed for that book. And so
I'd love to.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.